Good evening and welcome to another episode of This Week in 60 Minutes. Thank you for those of you joining us, and a special thank you for those of you tuning in for the very first time with us. I am Roodi Balgobin.
And thank you for those joining us on the Facebook live stream. I'm Nalini Singh. So tonight we just wanted to talk about a few things. So we'll start things off. I know everyone's tired of hearing about claims and objections, but the claims period is finally over. So now we're in the objections period, and that ends on November 11th. So given the recent developments at GCOM, we are expected to get greater clarity from the GCOM chairperson on Friday when she hosts a press conference. And then we'll hear more and take a deeper look at the implications of the development.
I should point out to the viewers now that she will also be on a radio interview tomorrow at 7 p.m. So all those who are interested can join there tomorrow to get some more clarity on all the decisions that are being taken at GCOM as well. Further to that, I'd just like to add that elections is a statutory process which are governed by statutory provisions, and at this point in time, all we're asking for and all that Guyanese are asking for is for those statutory provisions to be followed.
One of those provisions being the objection, so we just want to go over a few things that you can object. So if your grandparents have passed away or anyone in your family has passed away or someone you know that shares that are on the same voting list as you and you have access to their death certificate, you can object to them being on the voters list and take their name. Anyone you know on your divisional list that may be 17, may not be a Commonwealth citizen, or just any form of illegality, you can object to it, but you do need documentation. If you're not certain, you can contact the hotlines at Freedom House, which is 231-1133, 231-1148, or 231-5401. The numbers are also posted on our Facebook page and up on our screen right now. You can also WhatsApp message 611 PPPC, which is 611-7772. So tonight, as we continue our focus on the policy and looking towards the future, we have to talk to us tonight is the PPPC parliamentarian Dharam Kumar Siraj. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Hope I can be of service to you and our viewers.
Thank you for being with us here tonight. Last Friday, we heard Granger talked about cost of living, he talks about job, and he talked about education, among other things. Now, tonight we'd like to focus specifically on cost of living, jobs, and key services such as education and health, which he didn't mention at all in his hour-long speech. Just to go over briefly, he said, we have done a lot for the people. We have improved the quality of life. That is most important for the majority of people in every imaginable sphere. So, just to get you in your thoughts about that and what he said concerning getting everybody and improving.
Well, I agree with you, Steve, that Nalini, that he spoke at length, but he didn't say much. The speech was long, but in terms of substance, totally lacking in substance. And I'll take you back to December 2018 when the no confidence motion was passed. Now, why did the opposition, with 32 seats in parliament, move to challenge a government with 33 seats, obviously a clear majority, with a no confidence motion? It goes to the bone of the issues that we currently discussed, and that is welfare issues, cost of living that the president talked about, and all of that. From 2015 to December of 2018, the opposition with ears on the ground, that is the People's Progressive Party Civic, listening to people, their outcry and all of that, give them that confidence that they will be able to articulate position clearly, precisely in the National Assembly to get support to move the no confidence motion against the government and to win the vote. It is because of these issues, the bread and butter issues that the president spoke about or did not talk about. And that is what I think we should talk about. And why is it that Guyanese people now, after they were promised so much, really have found themselves on the back foot, and they're not really getting what was promised to them?
Well, we can agree that these are the bottom line issues for all Guyanese out there. But this is what the president had to say about his achievement and that people lives have improved. He said that people were concerned about the fact that the previous administration did not held any local government elections, and that they have held 2 local government elections. Also, that they have created 4 towns since taking office.
Those were his big achievements, which is interesting. He said that all in an
Right.
hour.
Yeah, but how does that affect the lives of people? local government elections, a lot of people talk about the PPP civic government not holding government elections.
Well, that was going to be my very next question to you, that if you can explain why is it that after 23 years that the PP
Right.
didn't have a
Minus
local
the
government?
1994
Yeah,
Yeah,
minus
the-
the 1994.
Yeah, the
which
fact
was-
of the matter is that in our young democracy, the People's Progressive Party civic government being responsible and also having an appreciation for developments taking place worldwide, engaged the then opposition, the PNC, primarily on issues that were of concern to them as it relates to electoral matters. And to make a long story short, the fact is that we were going through changes in our constitution as it relates to the regime associated with elections, so as to make it more participatory, more free, more transparent, more democratic. The PNC had some concerns. The PPP obviously had some concerns, and there was an opening to allow these concerns to be aired, and that is why the local government elections that admittedly were due were not held when they were due, because the PNC keeps objecting to what was in the laws without really bringing out concrete proposal to make changes that will enhance the electoral systems. And it is they who keep objecting to that which we have, and that is why you have had continuous postponement of the local government elections under the People's Progressive Party.
Didn't they
civic
also
government.
agree for the postponement of local government as well?
The fact that they were at the table and they were making proposals and they were not out on the streets making demand was a clear indication that they agree with the process that was an ongoing one and which they were totally involved in. And like I said, from where I sit and where the People's Progressive Party is, we can clearly state that local government elections were not held under the People's Progressive Party civic, primarily because of the then opposition, the PNC.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that clarification as it relates to local government election. You know, in the public domain, there's been something that they try to use against the PPP, saying that, oh, you had 23 years to do this local government election, you never did it. But no one is given the fact that it was the PNC itself that was holding up the local government elections.
They were,
because
that's
they
true.
were
That is why you will not have people like Robert Corbyn or Vincent Alexander and the likes
who
of
were
them.
all on a committee that
and
were supposed to move this
Calvary
process
and these
forward.
people. These were the key leaders in the PNC at that time who were articulating the PNC position to get electoral reform at the local government level.
Okay, so the quality, something he was saying was the quality of life is improving and people have more money in their pockets. So they would like to see the coalition government over the last 4 years. What do you think of
The yardstick that the president used to measure quality of life, obviously, I've never heard of them used before. Local government election. You hold 2 local government elections already.
naming 4 towns?
What is the quality of life for those
Yeah.
people? And you can't just up and name towns willy-nilly. You go in and you see your support base and say, oh, we'll turn you into a township. 750,000 at the most, 800,000 people, you want 10, 12 towns. What is really going on here? So you cannot judge quality of life by naming townships and all of that. It's ridiculous. You judge quality of life by the way people's life have improved.
Disposable
And
income.
Disposable income
pockets.
that want, money in their pockets, children attending school, cost of living coming down. They're able to get increase in salary. They're able to, in a tangible way, register that. They're able to pay their bills, they're getting subsidies, they're improving, they're building, they're traveling, and those are basically the yardstick which you judge improvement of life, not because the government held 2 local government elections. I mean, if you go down to the people down there and you talk to people, they say, well, we have less money to spend. You have had some increases, but cost of living has gone up. Inflation is on the rise. The exchange rate is exploding and all of these things. These things have a direct impact on cost of living. And when you throw in taxes and all of that, and you burden the people with these new taxes and increase in old taxes, and then you talk about improvement in life, obviously they're only talking about the cabinet and the people associated with the cabinet.
They're people.
Definitely.
I'd just like to mention they created they created Newtown at Bartica, and the resident there who had huge plots of land then learned subsequently after that, oh, you'd be reduced, because you're now in a township, you'd be reduced to 50 by 100 plot of land, you surrender the rest to the new town, and you have to pay taxes.
And increase.
Increase taxes on those things. So definitely that does not fit into the topic of cost of living and reduction in cost of living.
Well, it was clearly an ill thought out exercise, because you jump to name a particular area, demarcate boundaries, and say a township. What are the other things that follow in terms of a township? And that is what the people of Bartica and the people of Madi are finding out now. In a hard way, that there are taxes associated, downsizes, as you clearly mentioned, in the lands and so that they have. And they would prefer, quite frankly, to go back that it was existing before.
One of the PPP's promises in the upcoming manifesto you see in the posters around is reduced cost of living. Do you want to expand on the plans for that, for the reduced cost of living?
Definitely.
Yeah.
First of all, what impacts on cost of living? Increase in commodities. Right? This government, this coalition government, in this short time they have been in office, has registered a burden on our population of over 200 new taxes. Significant also, they have increased existing taxes, especially for the productive sector. Now, if you do that to the productive sector, right away, produce goes up, whether it's agriculture, commercial, industrial, or whatever, and people have to purchase. And when the cost of those products goes up, then your income is greatly reduced. So these taxes have an immediate impact of affecting people's cost of living. In the rural areas, in the farming sector, if you're going to increase drainage and irrigation charges, for example, by 300 and 400%, without providing better services, or without our producers getting better prices for their product, what is going to happen is that they're going to experience reduced profits, or they're going to start reducing losses. And that is exactly what started happening with the introduction of these new taxes. The manufacturing and commercial sectors obviously will have to pass on these taxes. So at the end of the day, the consumers feel the brunt of the increase in these taxes, and that has an immediate impact on cost of living and your quality of life. Now, if you're going to remove, put on VAT on education, we're talking about a healthy, educated population being the engine for your development overall. Now, if you're going to tax that which was intended to improve your life, how do you expect people to benefit? It's obviously a no-no. But what they were forced to do is that since they had nothing new to bring, no innovative mega projects, for example, no investors coming in, what they found happening is that the revenue base was drying up. And they were forced to increase taxes so as to increase that revenue base to match the increase in their expenditure. That increase in expenditure, they're all government related. Obviously, to start out with, was the increase that they give ministers, and the increase in ministries, and the increase in different outfits that were supposed to advise ministers. So you had an expansion of the bureaucracy. You have no new projects coming on stream, income generating project. You have an explosion of expenditure, nothing coming in terms of revenue, and that is why they started taxing everything, bringing in. And that is why our people have not experienced a better way of life, that which is what they had promised.
So you've spoken a lot about farmers and those in the cash crop industries and in the rural communities. And we know persons living in the rural communities relies heavily on cash crop farming and so on. Now, of course, support to vulnerable groups is very important. It's a necessary even from the government when there's in cases of natural disaster, for example, in Region 5. And just to give our viewers a quick update, the floodwaters have receded a bit in Region 5 between Danzig to Fairfield. However, in certain areas like Prospect, there's still water in the yards of people, and they're definitely suffering there. The RDC has been in talks through the regional chairman, has been in talks with the government to provide some sort of financial assistance to the farmers and the cash crop farmers. What is your view on this, and what position would you, as a RP executive, take on the rice farmers' plight and cash crop farmers?
This government is totally blind to a concept which is called preventative maintenance in all sectors, especially in the infrastructure of our country. Their only focus is on spending and trying to make their life better for themselves. What happened in Region 5 could have been prevented. It was preventable. We have had many high tides before, but because you have had people before walking those river dams and those sea dams and reporting on any deterioration, instant action is always taken by the People's Progressive Party Civic Administration, recognizing, of course, that our productive areas and the majority of our coastline lies below sea level. So they failed to implement preventative maintenance. They failed to improve the drainage and irrigation infrastructure. As a matter of fact, it deteriorates, and that deterioration started since 2015. In Region 5, even if the water goes down, another high tide, you will find it coming back. This is not an ordinary flooding, and it is not caused by fresh water. Now that has implication for years down the line, because these lands now will become unproductive. It will take years for it to be cleansed of that salt contamination. Nothing will grow there, or what will go there will not be beneficial to us. Right? Will not be beneficial to the farmers, definitely. So you'll have some probably salt-tolerant vegetation there that is of no use even to the animals, so the cows and all will not be able to feed. So this government is totally guilty of the neglect of infrastructure, not only in Region 5, all over the country. And the blame of that flooding rests squarely at the feet of this administration, the Ministry of Public Works and the Ministry of Agriculture. Their concentration have been elsewhere instead of providing and also equipping the technical people to deal with these issues. And they are spending money elsewhere, and that is why we can easily say that they're penny wise and pound foolish. The RDC, which is controlled by the People's Progressive Party, is trying its best to bring relief to the farmers. However, they don't have the wherewithal, they don't have the resources, they depend on the central government to do that, and they can make all the representation. If the government is not responsive, you will not find the people benefiting. And this government has made it clear on many occasions that if you're not one of us, well then you're at the end of the line.
You don't have a party card.
Right?
Sure
You're not going to be there. So they look at what they did to their own people. You know, because their own people are also suffering in some of these areas. So that situation down there is going to be with us for quite a long time. And it will be up to the new government of the People's Progressive Party Civic to fix that situation on the ground here and to make lives for all those who are affected better.
So with the lack of this preventative maintenance, Granger also said he's confident that the people on the ground are going to support the coalition. Do you think the people will support this penny wise, as you said, pound foolish?
The government is long on talk, right? Long on talk. And the action is not in sync with what they're saying. And if you listen to all of them, oh, we have provided a good life for people, people love us, they welcome us. But they're doing everything legal and illegal to delay and to prevent an elections. One fundamental issue Guyanese are aware of is that if you're confident you will win, why are you delaying?
Exactly.
And why are you breaking the law? Why are you embarrassing yourself? Why are you embarrassing Guyana, regionally and internationally, if you're so confident that people support you? The fact of the matter is that their action speaks louder than their words. People's lives are better off, they have more money in their pocket, they have this, they have that, But we're not going to have elections when it's constitutionally due. We're going to delay it. We hope that we'll get oil and we'll bail you out. They've already taken the overdraft at the Bank of Guyana to about $70 billion, right? $70 billion, near there. It's probably there by now as we speak. Yeah, but it's probably, right? Almost $70 billion. Now, what is happening there is that they're spending money to bribe people and say that, and they're putting up this facade that, listen, we have things under control. They're trembling in their boots. They will not call an election easily. They will try even now, although March 2nd has been announced. Look at what is happening. The indications that you're getting from the president is that, they will try everything possible in the books, out of the books, new creation, new invention, and they will try to even derail that. That is not the behavior of a government who is confident that people like them and support them.
Definitely.
It's the behavior of a government who have realized that they have done people wrong and they cannot win an election. And that is why they are doing their utmost to derail election, to postpone it, and to get a breathing space, hoping that they will get money. Where are they going to get it from, I don't know. Oil is not going to give them that in the next 3, 4, or 5 years. This country is in a serious financial crisis, and our people are feeling the squeeze, and the government knows it. That is why they're not going to call elections.
Granger said people are sending him lots of cards.
They're probably sympathy cards.
Well, so we've spoken a lot about cost of living. You've provided a lot of insight on cost of living. So I'll just like to go through quickly what the PPP promises in terms of cost of living under this general heading of cost of living. They promise reduce cost of living. They promised to bring back the water subsidy that was provided to the pensioners and the electrical subsidy. They promised support for single parents. They promised to reverse the 200 plus new taxes and fees that were introduced on the old ones that were raised and that you spoke about already. They are also promising no new taxes from a PPPC government in 2020. They're also promising no VAT on electricity, no VAT on data for your telephone and stuff like that. So these are just some of the measures, some of the most common ones that people would know about that they're promising in terms of cost of living. Now with that said, I'd just like to move over quickly into the area of jobs. Now the president in that interview said that businessmen must turn their attention to innovation, to invest and to infrastructure. He went on to say that businesses cannot prosper on handouts. They have to take a risk and invest. And I'm not seeing that investment. Now, what is your view on such a statement from a head of state?
It's irresponsible. The government job is to create an environment that is conducive to investment. You cannot, absolutely cannot, ask businessmen to make investment when the macro investment infrastructure is not in place, when the environment is not conducive, when there is uncertainty, political, economically, and otherwise. If businessmen see that you're not managing the economy, nobody in their right mind are going to invest their money or other people's money. Right? So whilst the president is calling for all of this, the fact of the matter is that the government has failed to provide the environment and the comfort that people need to make this kind of investment. And to back up a little bit, the PPP did all these things that you talk about, the reduced cost of living, with smaller budgets. And they were able to do that because they were managing expenditure. And they were managing this country in a way that creates the environment for investment to be made so that jobs can be created, goods manufactured and processed, and exported so that the country earn big time. So we can do that. This government came in, they have been increasing the budget more and more, year after year, yet people are getting less and less as the years go by. So the business people are being called upon to make investment in a country where the confidence level is at the lowest ever. And that confidence level is at the lowest ever because the framework is not being provided by this government to encourage businessmen to make that kind of investment. As a matter of fact, the reverse is happening. People are either not doing anything our people are moving out. Are moving out. So that is a clear indication that the investment climate and the infrastructural development that is supposed to be taking place is not happening, and people are not happy, and they're not comfortable, and that is why they're not making any investment whatsoever.
The president also said there are many programs which are already in place that we will continue and enlarge. We don't want to create a nation where people are living on handouts. We want to create a nation of independent employees or independent business persons themselves. So with that being said, what do you think is the difference now and versus when the PPC was in government?
Just before you answer, I'd just like to point out that no person is asking for a handout, but rather an opportunity, as you were explaining, a fair opportunity, so to speak.
A conducive environment, not hostile.
With a job to elevate themselves and to get something.
Because you're not getting handout doesn't necessarily mean handouts are not
not welcome.
No, because they're not. Because this government has been given handout.
I welcome some handout.
No, everybody would welcome it now.
Exactly.
They've given the economic position of our people. Every single person will welcome a little bit of help from the government. But the fact of the matter, my view is that this government has been given handout to selected areas and to selected people. And that is why they're also in big problem, because where is it coming from? And the barrel is not without a bottom. So that source is drying up, and that is why they've been increasing taxes and so on to continue to give handout. And they're doing that to bribe people. Recently, after the no confidence motion was passed, they started to give handout. So now the president is talking, like here again he's talking one thing, and they're doing something else. Because they themselves have been doing that, giving handout, like I said, to their own. Now, the People's Progressive Party does not believe in handout. As you would like to put it, that's everyone would like to say that it's teach you how to fish rather than to give a fish. And that is why under the People's Progressive Party government, this country was developing, because the opportunities were given. The environment was created, the confidence was there so that people could have made investment and they could have been growth, because you are leading from the front, and which is a government responsibility to create the stability, create the environment, put in the kind of infrastructure that is needed, and to give the confidence for our people. So what the president is talking about is that again, it's all talk, that we will not do handout, but ask people to invest. If you're not giving handout and you're not creating the environment that is conducive to growth and for development and for investment, how do you expect the country to grow? It is simply a no-no, because anyone analyzing what the president is talking about will know obviously that it's all talk. And it will not stand up to any kind of analysis.
You said that this barrel is a bottomless barrel. It's not a bottomless barrel, it's drying out. Today we saw the president saying there'll be no bonus for public servants. How do you think the country is going to react to that when the Christmas bonus?
He said no bonus, and then he went on to say, but we're a caretaker government, that is why we can't do it.
Oh, yeah, they're selectively accepting the status only when
it's convenient
exactly.
to them.
So it's very hypocritical. Because on the other hand, they're saying that, listen, we are a government, the cabinet is in place, and we're doing this, and we're signing new deals
in
and
fact,
all of that.
In the same vein, he said that, the Minister of Finance will come to cabinet and then brief us on whether we could do it. And
But we're a caretaker government.
But we're a caretaker.
Right, so it's a caretaker government who cannot give you bonuses.
But
And they said, we're a caretaker government because of the confidence motion. So in a subtle way, the president is trying to blame this no bonus issue on the people who passed the no confidence motion. But he's not talking about this caretaker status when they're signing new contracts and making new deals.
Which it shouldn't be doing as a caretaker
Where it should be doing, because a caretaker government, as we understand it, is that you're preparing for elections alone.
Exactly.
Right? So what he has done there, basically, but see, people saw through that. But for the purpose of those who have not seen through it, is that this bonus issue has nothing to do with the no confidence motion. This would have been over since March 2019, not March 2020. When it was legally due, the elections would have been held and people would have gotten their bonuses and all of that. So to tell our people is basically, it's an insult to the intelligence of our public servants. That listen, we cannot give you bonuses because we are a caretaker government. They're not a caretaker government from since then to now. Because they said the cabinet is in place, and then the president also went on to say, Parliament will continue.
Exactly.
Because we want to pass more money.
Exactly,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
they're telling
So why you
me-
can't pass more money to give a bonus?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? So this is kind of selective. The president is very selective and hypocritical in his pronouncement on certain key issues and toying with the intelligence of our people. You can't do that in this modern day. It's highly irresponsible of the president to think that anyone will buy this nonsense about not being able to give bonus because you're a caretaker government. When on the other hand, you're going overboard to sign new deals and to do other things with your ministers and failing even to dissolve your cabinet and to go into caretaker mode because the Constitution is clear on how the government operates. And clearly 106 the cabinet stands resigned. The
But they're
president is in place in a caretaker mode to only to do that which is necessary to
For the
provide for an
election.
election. They have thrown all of that.
In that
overboard.
same vein, I'd just like to point out that where he talks about handouts and involving the business community, I saw the chairman of the private sector committee also called him out on that, and it basically reiterated most of the points which you have said there already. That the environment is what we're complaining about. We don't want any handouts. I also saw one businessman calling him out, and this was reported in the press, saying that he also have invested millions of Ghana dollars and he's been victimized by this administration. However, as it relates to jobs, the PPP is promising 50,000 new jobs over the 5-year period, along with apprenticeship in various areas and sectors. Could you expound on this a bit more?
Well, it's new jobs and then giving back jobs so people who are fired.
No, okay.
And we can start out immediately.
That started 1,000 already.
Yeah, that started 1,000 already,
Yes.
right? And you could start out immediately with the sugar workers, for example, because right away that's 7,000 people. So you got to, once you reopen those estates, which the PPP has pledged to do, you're bringing back immediately 7,000 jobs, and then you move on to the sectors, and mostly the productive sectors have been affected. The agriculture productive sectors, the manufacturing productive sector, the mining productive sector, the industries productive sector, forestry, gold, diamond, bauxite, and all. These are the areas that were hardest hit, and the layoff took place there. In the government circles, there have been selective areas of dismissal. And they've also been selective areas of employment. So whilst there have been people dismissed in the public service and the government infrastructure, employment infrastructure, the bureaucracy has actually increased. So more jobs are created in government at the expense of people who were dismissed. So the People's Progressive Party is going to do that, move into that. And once the environment is created in these productive sectors and those taxes are removed, right away businesses will get incentive to expand on their operation and to go into new operation. And to do that, you will have to create jobs. You will have to create jobs for our people.
Reopen jobs too.
Take information and communication technology, for example. I've heard a president of one of the developed countries said that the country that controls artificial intelligence will lead the way. Artificial intelligence got to do with information and communication technology. We have started to provide the infrastructure for that, the previous government, the government of the People's Progressive Party.
I remember in Linden with the microchip factory.
Right.
Which
If
was
you
also-
make significant investment in information communication technology, you're going to create thousands of jobs. And I think this 50,000 is a very conservative figure. Because once you'll see a repeat of 1992 multiplied a dozen times. Because you will create that which is going to be encouraging for people, right? The infrastructure you started, 1992, we did the drainage and irrigation infrastructure. This country simply took off. You know, as a country, people say like a jet plane, right? Now, what is going to happen in 2020 is that if you create the infrastructure with a vision, right? And then right away, people are going to make that kind of investment. Of critical importance, energy. The cost of energy, once it comes down, will be a welcoming sign for investment, for manufacturing, for value added, for processing, for manufacturing and all of that. That will see an increase in your export. And we're not even talking oil here. right? Oil should be icing on the cake, because these are hardcore infrastructure projects that will be put in place that are sustainable over their lifetime. Our lifetime, your children lifetime, your grandchildren
Renewable
lifetime.
versus
Renewables, for example. That's another area that immense amount of jobs can be created. Renewables started with Amelia Falls. Once you've gone hydro, then jobs will be created to lay the lines, to manage the project itself. Then you're talking about solar, you're talking about wind, you're talking about wind farm,
and
all
decreasing
that,
electricity
right?
costs.
So going renewable and going green is not painting State House in green and office of the
Definitely,
president.
I
in
always
green.
say that's their version
Right,
of going green.
right, yeah. It's crazy, the notion of what is green. So renewable is another area that this country is going to really explode in. So these areas will create the employment for our people, the apprenticeship. We're going to not only target our educational institutions to produce graduates in areas that are not in high demand, right? It got to be a targeted policy decision to channel people's educational involvement and needs into areas where they can be productively employed. Those are the areas that will see employment being created. And we cannot continue graduating people in social sciences when IT is in demand, renewable is in demand, on all these science, on all these areas are in demand. So these areas of investment will create the employment that we are talking about. New employment, hire back those people who were dismissed, and to move on to other things. In the agriculture sector, for example, we've too long been primary producers. The greatest deterrent to that is the cost of energy. And that is why I said, once we bring energy, cheap energy to our people, this is another area that tremendous amount of self-employment will take place. And depending on the size of these private sector investment, you will have them employing more and more people.
More jobs.
More jobs, right?
So 50,000.
Yeah, so for me, 50,000, it's, it can be done, and it can be done very quickly.
Well, based on that explanation, and I know you're one of the leaders of the party, and you're familiar with the vision of the party and what they plan to do, I would like to think that 50,000 is a very, very conservative figure as well.
Based on what you're telling us now.
Yeah, and like I said,
I'm sure all our viewers would agree with you as
yeah,
well.
and I'm saying that this is not even, this is not even talking about oil.
Yeah.
And the
And
revenues
we,
thereof.
the People's Progressive Party, is on record of saying that employment in this new sector, the oil sector, must be priority for Guyanese first.
Yes.
The training has to
We
be
haven't seen
enhanced,
that.
and we're not going to go in it in a small way, depending on private people to it. The government must have a targeted response in creating the skill set, the talent, the education for people to take up jobs in this sector itself.
Well, speaking of creating and talent, so we'll go to education now. So something Granger said when he spoke about, in his lengthy speech, he spoke about education, and this is what he said. There are many areas in this country where delivery of public service has been improved. In schools, we've provided 30 buses to take children to school. We provided boats in the rivers, and we provided bicycles. So he's provided boats, buses, and bicycles. What do you think what the PPC has planned for education?
All the while he took away the 10,000
Yes,
cash grant,
yes.
and that is what they replaced it with, both buses
Boats,
and
the
bicycles.
3 Bs.
Yeah. What are your views?
If you put all the bees together, all the bees, you put them together in one nest, they will not be able to service one school. The buses, the boat, and bicycles, you're probably talking 1,200 children. Right? That's one school population.
And
So this great initiative of the president will be swallowed by one multilateral school in this country, right? So how is that going to have an impact?
So not all
How-
children are benefiting from him, is it?
It's a selected few. I mean, 30 buses, 900 children, and most of the buses, you pass them by the roadside.
And
The
they're-
children are going to come out and take other public transportation to get, because these buses, some of them are painted over in the
Green?
government color, and whilst they paint them over, they did not overhaul the engine and service them properly.
They just painted
So a
them
lot-
and
yeah.
they
They went
David G.
green.
Yeah, right. So a lot of them need to be overhauled, need to be repaired. They made a couple of trips and then they break down after that, right? So how does children benefit from that? 30 buses, 900 children benefit from that. A couple of boats here, a couple of bicycles here, a couple of children benefit that. That simply is lost in our student population in this country. If you want to have an impact on education, you will do what the PPP did, for example. Every single child, $10,000. With a small budget, we do that. With this big budget of the coalition government, you're supposed to be giving the children them $60,000 by now. But how will the children get $60,000 when the ministers them taking home $1.5 million? And the prime minister was the first one who jumped up and said, oh, I cannot get less than the attorney general. It has always been that. He said, even if it's $1 more, I must get $1 more than the attorney general, right? It's an ego thing for him. So all these people who are talking about, you know, lean and mean, suddenly realize that, hey, don't worry the school children anymore. Let us ensure we have a fat package for ourselves, and then and if we cannot get it by the taxes, let us take away the grant from the children them. And that is exactly what they did. They took $10,000 from every single child, nursery, primary, and secondary in this country. Every child they took $10,000 from out of the public system and put it in their pocket. And then they put up 30 buses and a couple bicycles and a couple boats and say, oh, we're going to replace it. So our children have not benefited from that which Granger had said. So we're talking about near $2 billion. Near $2 billion taken away from children, especially when this government budget is so big. The PPP used to give near $2 billion children with a small budget, right? Keep the ministers, them provide more services, enhance the infrastructure for investment with a smaller budget and still give more. Not to talk about our the 1,900 plus community development workers in the hinterland areas. That is another area that they took away millions from people. So they didn't have money in their place. So what the president is talking about obviously has not made an impact on the lives of our people. Obviously, a couple children are going to school and all of that, but mothers will prefer to have some money to put it in areas that they need it. A child walk into school, the bus will not benefit it. And then there are selected areas where these buses stop. So there are also discrimination in the allocation of these resources. When you do it across the board, every single child benefit from that cash care initiative. The PPP will put that back in place. And the PPP will also increase it year after year to satisfy the ultimate aim of providing free education from nursery to university. Bearing in mind also, just to deviate a little bit, free university education is promised by the PPP.
Within 5 years.
Yeah,
within 5 years. It can be within 2 years, within 3 years. But the mess that this government has put this country with, that is why we were careful in saying within 5 years. If we are not $70 billion in the red, we could have easily said within a year that you will have it. But how do we deal with that? So these are issues that we have to deal with. So obviously, what the president said is not resonating with people on the ground, because these issues that they talk about obviously have not made an impact. What we are doing, that we are talking bread and butter issues. We are talking real issues. And we are talking about that which can be done.
Realistic promises.
Realistic promises. And
Not
as a matter of
just
fact,
hollow
we're talking.
promises of,
Yeah,
like the
but as a matter of fact, we are talking about what we did before and what we will put back in place. The cash grant, for example. That is what we were doing before.
But free education is something they promised in 2015 and increased the tuition at UG.
Well, they did it year after year, and then because of the no confidence motion, they suddenly announced that we're going to.
They were going to have it back again.
Yeah. Because every year under this coalition, they have been increasing the fees at the University of Guyana.
Free.
Yeah, but like I said, they talk one thing and they do something else.
Yeah.
They say people are better off, but they're hiding from the elections.
Well, in fact,
People vote
all the things I've mentioned earlier under the broad heading of cost of living and what the PP plans to do is things that were in place and which was removed by the government and they're going to bring back. So we haven't even gotten to the parts as yet. What are the new promises from the PPP? That will come shortly when the reader-friendly version of the manifesto is launched.
20,000 online scholarships.
Yeah, well,
Right.
that's
So
one
these
of
are
the
some
laws.
of the new things, because obviously there's a need for that, right? And it's easily done. You know, that is why I talk about artificial intelligence and I talk about information and communication technology. That is the way the world is going. I don't need to attend a university overseas to benefit from the education because I can sit in my living room and sit in my study area and do the same program. And that was a vision that we had, and that is why we were creating these internet hubs in different areas. Because a child in Paramakatoy or K2 or Kurukubaru should have the same access to research material as a child in London. And it's at your fingertip if you have the information and communication technology in place. And that is what the PPP was moving rapidly towards. And this is an area that one of the new areas that we're talking about. And that is what we're talking about, online scholarships. Not only are we providing scholarships for the University of Guyana, which of course we plan to make free, but you're going to do that online. And it's going to cost less. And it will be properly validated, and you will have all systems in place as the developed world to ensure that our children, you know, our teenagers, our university graduates benefit and they're equipped with the tools to make them competitive in any part of this world.
Well, one of the things that fit into this broad category that we're speaking of tonight is health. In Granger's 1 something speech, he made no mention of health. But we have been reiterating over and over, going over and over from the PPP that the constant drug shortages across the region. I know you're a man that traveled the length and breadth of Guyana. The constant drug shortages, the fact that there's VAT on healthcare and prescription drugs and stuff like that. I know some of the promises from the PPP moving forward is to remove the VAT on healthcare, which was placed there by the government, and to end prescription drug shortages and to end drug shortages, specifically in the hinterland areas. Can you give us a bit more into this?
There are a couple of areas that the PPP government, the People's Progressive Party as a party, the People's Progressive Party Civic as a government, will never ever allow to get out of their control. Health, education, utilities. These utilities and services go to the core of providing elementary human rights to people across this country. And that is why it's immoral to put VAT on health.
Definitely.
Health, a People's Progressive Party civic government will make enhanced free health care for our people. That is a manifesto promise that we are doing that before. We took this country in 1992 from a dilapidated health care sector to make it almost one that is admired in the Caribbean itself. So not only removal of VAT from healthcare service, but to enhance the services throughout the length and breadth of this country. We've been training doctors. Our doctors per capita increased tremendously. By 1992, you only had a couple of doctors, most of them Cubans trained in this country. Right? By the 2015, you have thousands of doctors throughout the length and breadth of this country. Guyanese doctors train and come out there, right? So we're going to ensure that not only education is provided, but health care is also provided. And removal of VAT. Look at drugs, for example, prescription drugs and all of that. You got to make these things free, available free for a healthy population is a wealthy population. Old people always used to say that. If the child is not healthy, he cannot learn. So it is a government responsibility to make health care free to our people, make it affordable, make it available, and to make drugs. And make it available. Now look at what this government did. 2015, 2016. The drug ban, the famous Sussex Street drug ban. Right away, $12 million every month going to rent a bottom house.
12.5 plus VAT.
Yeah. Now you imagine that.
Plus VAT.
You imagine that. It's $14 million per month going for rent. That could have gone towards purchasing hard prescription drugs and make it available to our health institution. Instead, it go into a friend pocket and then siphon off, some probably to Congress Place, some going to other places.
Executive member of
right?
the PNCR.
So, it's cronyism, friendship, and all of that. So that has definitely put an impact on our health care. I say, I went out, I was in the Northwest the other day, Komaka area. Pensioners were complaining to us that they go there and they wait and they wait and they wait and they can't get their pension, lining up to receive their pension. Imagine, these are people, imagine healthcare. They talk about the health care. You can't get pressure tablets, you can't get tablets to treat diabetes, insulin, and all. These are elementary drugs that should have always be available. You're going back to the days in the 80s where an aspirin is the cure it all. Headache, snake bite, sugar. It's probably worse because you don't have aspirin now. They probably, back in the days you used to get Panadol and Whiz and all of that, right? And that is what people are saying, that the government go and talk and say, at least we had Panadol under the PPP. Now you ain't got nothing.
Exactly.
And common diseases, diabetes, for example, hypertension. These things got to be at a minimum readily available at these far off locations. On the coast, well, yeah, you can travel around and go to different pharmacies. But at government health institutions in the hinterland community, it must be a priority, and it will be a priority on the People's Progressive Party civic government to make it available to our people out there. It should not be a burden on it. It must be free. It should be free for our people. And the pension must increase, and the water subsidy and light subsidy must go back to our people who have spent their prime years working to develop our country. We got to find a mechanism to pay them back.
Okay, well, we're getting the signal from our operator that we're running out of time. So just in a minute or so, any closing remarks you would like to give to our viewers, or anything else you would like to say?
This government, this coalition government, has deceived our people. They promised a lot. They ran a very good campaign, an elegant campaign. They had a targeted campaign for every section of our population: the young people job, the school children free education, the pensioner water light subsidies, the young professionals enhance jobs creation, every single section of the population. The workers increase in salary, the sugar workers 20%. Rice farmers, $6,000 bag for paddy, in some areas $9,000. So what they did was a crafty election campaign that was area specific, section specific, locality specific, and people bought into it because it was expertly done, and they voted for that change. Today people have realized that it was all a scam. They have realized that it is a scam, and this government is running scared. They don't know what to do, save and accept illegal things to stay in power, and to continue to stay in power until they hope somebody could wave a magic wand and make things better so that they can win again. Other than that, they're going to put things in place to rig. We got to safeguard against that. So our people are awake, they are aware. A lot of young people have now experienced the PNC for what it is, right? Because from 92 to now, it has been quite a long time. And whilst we have been talking about it, the elderly, the older people, middle-aged people who experience it knows about it. The young people now have experience. So we have a population of the young, the old, the not so old, and the not so young who are experiencing, who have experienced it before and are currently experiencing the PNC government. The mismanagement, the discrimination, the blindness, the visionlessness, and all of that.
The rampant corruption by them.
Corruption, illegalities, and all of that. And they are rearing to go to that election to make a change. The change that they cried for before is the same change that they're afraid of now, and I'm talking about the coalition government. So if the president is saying that people like us, let us go to the poll tomorrow. He's not going to do that because the reality on the ground, they know it, we know it, and our people know it. The reality on the ground is totally different, and that is why we're running scared. So to our viewers and to you, I'm saying that keep your eyes open, be vigilant, be organized, ensure that you're mobilized, prepare for elections.
So thank you for joining us. We hope to have you on again in the future as we look to discuss more of the policies coming and highlighting what the PPP government will be doing in the future. So thank you to all our viewers for joining us tonight. You can rewatch our program anytime on our Facebook page, This Week in 60 Minutes, and please don't forget to pick up your copy of The Mirror.
Okay, thank you all for joining us. Siraj, special thanks to you for being on the program. We hope you guys enjoyed the program this week and you learned a lot. We talk about cost of living, jobs, the plans from the PPP as it relates to jobs, cost of living, what we plan to do in the education and health sector. We hope to see you next week, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.